Welcome to MyShliach Story Hour Chassidim series.
Lachluchis. In the previous episode, we began speaking about different batei dinim and different cases that came before Reb Hillel als a Rav in his capacity as a Rav in the city of Bobroisk, and possibly also in the city of Paritcher, and how he ruled and how his psak came into being, and how he made sure that his psak was enforced. Once, during a farbrengen in the home of the Chosid Reb Hillel, there was a conversation amongst the Chassidim about different stories of tzaddikim. And the mayor said, listen here, Chevre, I want to tell you the story about how I was born. I was born in no simple way. My whole birth was a nace. Tell us the story. And so the mayor says like this. You know, my mother, she was married to a man for 10 years. And since they weren't benched with kinderlach, the Beis Din instructed her husband that she should get a get. She should divorce. So this way, the husband can marry another woman, and perhaps if he marries somebody else, he will be benched with children. And so, that's what they did. I'm sure they tried everything they could, but for whatever reason, they weren't benched with kinderlach, and ultimately, it was very sad, and they had to get a divorce. And so, the mayor says, my mother got married a second time. And 10 years passed. And again, they weren't benched with kinderlach. And when her second husband, the mayor says, who actually is my father, mentioned that perhaps he too should get a divorce in order to remarry, this time the mayor says, my mother refused. Because I'm already 20 years older than I was when I originally got married. At least 20 years older. I'm not a young person anymore. No one's going to want to marry me. It's been 20 years. I don't know if I'm even able to have kinderlach at this age. When I was in my 20s or my 30s, maybe early 40s. But now, no man is going to want to marry me because there's such a small chance of naturally having kinderlach. I don't want to get divorced and be left all by myself. After much discussion, they decided they're going to go to the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, and ask the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, what they should do. And whatever the Tzemach Tzedek says, that's what they're going to do. So, they made their way to Lubavitch, set up a time for them to go into Yechidus to the Tzemach Tzedek, and they told the Tzemach Tzedek the whole situation. The Tzemach Tzedek listened, and then said, what you have to do here is you have to set up a Beis Din and present this shaila, this question, whether you should get divorced or not, in a din Torah before the Rabbanim. You have a taina, the father, the man has a taina, that he wants to get divorced and marry somebody else, and hopefully the Eibishter will bench him with kinderlach because the mitzvah of pru uruvu is on the father. And you have a taina, that Tzemach Tzedek says to the wife, that if you get divorced now, you're going to be left all alone. No one's going to want to marry you because you're much older now. So, you have to go to Din Torah and ask the Rabbanim, what is the halacha? How do they paskin? Okay. Now, Reb Hillel Paritcher was in Lubavitch at that time. The mayor continues and says, he was asked to be one of the 3 Rabbanim of the Beis Din. Beis Din usually has 3 Rabbanim. You know, sometimes when somebody has to go to a Din Torah, the way it works is, let's go back to the story of Chaim and Shmetal from last episode. If they had to go to a Din Torah to have 3 Rabbanim, so Chaim would pick one Rav, Shmetal would pick another Rav, and then the 2 Rabbanim together would pick a third Rav, and all 3 of them together would be the Dayanim in this Beis Din. So, Chaim is picking a Rav which he thinks would be good for him. Shmetal is picking a Rav which he thinks will be good for him. So everybody feels that the Rabbanim are equally on their side. And together, both the Rabbanim that were chosen would pick a third Rav which they both agree with. This way, all parties involved feel like the Beis Din is fair and square and it's not leaning towards any side. Reb Hillel had a rule. he would only be the third Rav on the Bezdin. Meaning, if Chaim came to Reb Hillel and said, Reb Hillel, can you please be my Rav on the Bezdin? Hillel would say no. If Shmerel came to Reb Hillel and said, Reb Hillel, could you please be my Rav on the Bezdin? Reb Hillel would say no. But if the two Rabbonim that were chosen by Shmerel and Chaim came to Reb Hillel and they said, Reb Hillel, can you please be the third Dayan on the Bezdin? Then and only then would Reb Hillel accept it. Let's go back to the story of Reb Meir Tumarkin's parents. Reb Hillel was in Lubavitch at the time that Reb Meir Tumarkin's father and mother were in Yechidus by the Tzemach Tzedek, and the Tzemach Tzedek said that they have to set up a Bezdin. And Reb Hillel agreed to be one of the three members of the Bezdin. Bepashtus, he was going to be the third member, because this was his rule. But he had one condition. Since it was the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, that said that they should make a Bezdin, the case had to be held in no other place but the Tzemach Tzedek's Heilige Zimmer, in the Tzemach Tzedek's room. And so, they asked the Tzemach Tzedek if the Din Torah could take place inside the Tzemach Tzedek's room, and the Tzemach Tzedek agreed. And so, the Din Torah began. Reb Meir's father, of course he wasn't Reb Meir's father yet because Reb Meir wasn't born, stood up and said that the only reason why he was asking permission to give his wife a get, to get a divorce, is because of halacha. And the halacha says that if a couple is married for 10 years without kindalach, then the husband, who has the mitzvah of pru revu achrayis, it's his mitzvah, he should get divorced and remarry somebody else who is able to, with the Rebishter's help, have children. And the mayor says his mother got up and she said no, her second divorce at her age would destroy her whole life. You know, kindalach, if you go back to the previous series that we had prior to Gimel Tammuz, there was a similar story we discussed over there about a Litvische individual who was married for 10 years, and his Rish Kailal or Rav told him that he should also get divorced, and the Rebbe gave him a bracha that he should be zeicha to have children, and sure enough he did. It's a very interesting story, you can go back and listen to that. But the issue at the time of that story as well was they were married for 10 years, and the halacha is when you're married for 10 years you have to get divorced without kindalach. And so, here's the amazing part of the story. After both sides presented their case, Reb Hillel sat for a few minutes and thought. And then he said, here is my psak din. They both state that there's no issues of shalom bayis between the two of them. They're getting along just perfectly fine. They have a happy home and a happy marriage. The only issue over here is that for whatever reason they weren't benched with kindalach. And so, says Reb Hillel, the best situation, the best solution is that they should remain married and that Eibishter should bench them with kindalach. All their two judges agreed and they all signed off on this psak din. They informed the Tzemach Tzedek of the Beis Din's psak, and the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, smiled and said, indeed, it is very proper that they should taka be benched with children. And so, the husband and wife were very happy to follow the Beis Din's ruling, and a year later, Reb Meir Tumarkin was born. That's just another story about a Din Torah by the Rav, Reb Hillel Paritcher. But Reb Hillel was not just a Rav, and not just a big Talmud Chacham. He was a very, very special, devoted, Ibergegeben Chosid. And one of the focuses in Chassidus Chabad, like we know, is Avodas HaTfilah. When we daven, we don't just chaplap and rush the words. We are focusing on every word, on every nekuda, on every letter, and try to think Pirush HaMilis as much as we can. Look at a video of the Rebbe davening. See the Rebbe saying every word from a siddur, slowly and clearly. Watch the video of davening with the Rebbe. Listen to a tape of the Rebbe davening. There's no rush. Thanking the Eibishter for everything that we have. And Reb Hillel was known for his davening b'arichis. But one day, kindalach, Reb Hillel announced he had a great desire to travel to Lubavitch and spend Shabbos with the Tzemach Tzedek. However, every wagon driver, every taxi driver, every Uber driver, there was no Uber drivers in those days, or whatever you would call them, that he spoke to try to book a wagon driver to drive him to Lubavitch, they said, sorry, Reb Hillel, we're unable to make it at this time. It's too far away and we're booked up. It was just too far to go from Babroisk to Lubavitch and make it before Shabbos with such short notice. So I'm sorry, Reb Hillel, we'd love to take you to Lubavitch. We know how much you want to be with the Tzemach Tzedek, but we can't take you. But one young chassid who owned a pair of strong horses, young, strong horses, heard about Reb Hillel's problem that he wanted to go to Lubavitch, but nobody wanted to take him. And he approached Reb Hillel.
Reb Hillel, listen to me. I can get you to Lubavitch before Shabbos, Bezras Hashem. But I have two conditions that you have to be listening if you want us to do it. Number one, in order to go, we have to have the express highway. We have to travel on the roads that are paved, smooth roads that were built by the Tsar. And I know, Reb Hillel, b'derech klal, you have a rule that you don't like to use the roads and the highways that were made by the Tsar, even though that's a lot more geschmack and not so bumpy to travel on those roads, but you don't want to give any credit to the Tsar and the evil government who made such terrible gzeiros on the Yidden, and I understand it. And you know, Reb Hillel, I respect your decision not to use the roads made by the Tsar. However, if we want to make it on time for Shabbos, we have to use the express highway. There's no other way we're going to make it. And condition number two is, when it comes time to leave, Reb Hillel, we have to leave right away. We have to spend many hours traveling every day. And I'm sorry to say, Reb Hillel, but you won't be able to daven ba'arichis the way you used to. I know that even on a regular weekday, Reb Hillel, your davening took a very long time, not just on Shabbos. And by the time you finish davening Shachris and learning all your shiurim, it's already in the middle of the afternoon. But Reb Hillel, if you promise me to daven like normal people, and you allow me to go on the regular roads paved by the Tsar, then my horses will be able to do the job. So Reb Hillel thought about it, and it was a very difficult decision, but he really had this overwhelming desire and yearning to be with the Tzemach Tzedek and to spend Shabbos by the Rebbe. So he says, you know what? Fine. I'll allow you to travel on the roads, and I'll make an effort not to daven ba'arichis. So they packed up their supplies and the belongings, whatever they needed for the trip, and they set out immediately. They traveled and traveled and traveled, whole day at top speed, horses galloping on the paved roads all the way. And finally, after covering a great distance that first day, they pulled into a krechma, they pulled into an inn to rest for the night. Reb Hillel, gute Nacht, but please remember, when it comes in the morning, please do not daven barichis. Please don't daven for too long. We have to hit the road. Otherwise, we're not going to make it for Shabbos. The next morning, they both woke up very early to daven. After davening, the young man, the Balagola, he ate a geschmacke, juicy breakfast. After doing a chaplap rush through davening, quickly went to hitch the horses to the wagon, had everything ready to go, and then went back into the inn, into the krechma, to call Reb Hillel and say, come on, Reb Hillel, ready to go. However, you can imagine the man's shock and horror when he saw that Reb Hillel was completely unprepared to travel. Reb Hillel, after being awake for 2 hours already, was only in the beginning of Shachris. And he was davening at his usual slow pace, thinking, Pirush HaMilos, saying every word with kavanah, not rushing, not swallowing the words, not saying 2 words in one breath, but davening like a mensch, like the way a chassid should daven, and the way a chassid does daven. Oh, I should have known. I should have known Reb Hillel can never control himself when it comes to davening. What are we going to do? After waiting many hours as patiently as he can, the wagon driver keeps going back and forth, looking at the clock, and he's antsy and he's jumpy and he's trying to be patient, but he sees as Reb Hillel keeps davening Hoidu and Baruch Shamar and Psuki de Zimra and Birchas Krishma and Krishma, Reb Hillel is not speeding up. He's taking his time and he's davening like a mensch. He's davening barichis.
And the wagon driver is getting so nervous. It's so late. It's so spät. Wird käme nicht ankommen inside to Lubavitch. We're never going to make it in time for Shabbos to Lubavitch. Reb Hillel finally finished davening. And the Chassid says, Reb Hillel, didn't you already agree? Didn't the Rav already agree to daven like a normal mensch, just to daven like a regular person does? Why didn't you daven at a regular pace, not bariches, like we planned to? Now, it's too late. We won't be able to arrive in Lubavitch before Shabbos. We have to be turning around and be going home. This was just a big waste of time. Reb Hillel was very relaxed, smiled, and answered the wagon driver with this amazing mashal. Reb Hillel says, my friend, when a merchant travels to the great Yerid, to the great fair, to the great market day in the city of Leipzig. In the olden days, there were no Costco's or Walmarts or Targets or any of these big supermarkets or Kroger's. If somebody wanted something, you would buy from your little local guy who owned the little store. And where would he get his things from? Every so often, they would travel to Leipzig, where there would be a big yerid, a big fair, a big marketplace. Everybody, all the peddlers would come with all their shmatis and their potatoes and their onions and their apples and anything that they would make and sell. And people would bargain and buy and sell at good wholesale prices. So it was a big deal to travel to Leipzig to participate in this market day. So the Hillel says, when a merchant travels to the great fairs in Leipzig or any other place, what does he go for? His goal is to buy the scheda, the merchandise that he wants, and he wants to get it at a good price. And only there, only in Leipzig, only by these big sales, is there the best prices, the most discounted rates. Then he brings the scheda home, brings it to his hometown, and let's say he bought it for $5, he sells it for $8 or 8 rubles, so he makes a little bit of a profit. And while Reb Hillel is saying this, the young man is shaking his head. Yes, Rebbe, I understand, but what does it have to do with us traveling to Lubavitch? Listen to this. Let's say Yankel is a merchant, he's a seicher, and he's on his way to Leipzig to meet the great dealers who have the exact merchandise, the exact scheda that he's looking for. And on his way, while he's halfway to Leipzig, he meets the person, the wholesaler who's going to sell him the scheda, is going to sell him the things that he wants to buy. And the merchant tells him, listen, instead of us traveling to Leipzig and then setting up shop and me selling it to you there, I'm going to sell you everything you need right here on the side of the road for the same price that you would buy it when you're in Leipzig. This way you save yourself a trip to travel there and to travel back. You get to buy it from me on the side of the road. You get a good deal. I make the sale, and we can both go home early. And this way we avoid the hustle and bustle and traffic in the city of Leipzig. Imagine that happens on the side of the road. But instead of Yankel taking the deal right away, Yankel says, I am sorry, I cannot take it. I must travel all the way to Leipzig, and then, only then can I buy it from you. If you want me to buy it from you, come with me to Leipzig, and I will buy it from you over there. Not on the side of the road. That's not a place to do business. Reb Hillel asks the wagon driver, what would you call such a seicher? What would you call such a merchant? What would you call Yankel if he was offered to buy the exact thing he wants at the exact discounted price, but much, much closer to home? And Yankel says, sorry, I can't buy it now. We have to buy it all the way in Leipzig. What would you call such a person? You'd call him a tippish, a fool. It's a silly thing to say. Sorry, I can't buy it now. Come with me to the store. You have to buy it there. After all, what's the whole point of going to Leipzig? He's going there to buy the scheda. He's going there to buy the merchandise and to get a good deal. And if he can get it right here without traveling, then the smart thing to do would be to buy it right here. The traveling is for nothing. The same thing, Reb Hillel says, is true over here. Why am I traveling to Lubavitch? Why am I going to the Rebbe? Only in order for the Rebbe to give me guidance and advice and to help me to learn and how to daven properly. But now that I'm on the road and I'm in the middle of the way, and the davening is going well, and my learning is going well. Only a fool would say, no, I can't daven here. I must go to Lubavitch. It's a silly thing to do. I'm going to the Rebbe to teach me how to daven. And now I'm davening the way the Rebbe wants me to daven. What should I say? No, I can't daven like a chassid. I have to throw it all away and go to the Rebbe. I can do both. I can go to the Rebbe and I can daven, and the Rebbe is going to show me and teach me how to daven even better. To say, no, I have to daven very fast in order to get to Lubavitch is like the merchant saying, I'm sorry, I can't buy the schayra on the side of the road. I have to schlep all the way to Leipzig and then take it there. I don't want to be a fool. I don't want to be a tippish. And the young wagon driver listens. And she says, okay, Rebbe, now I understand. And so can the Lach. Like all good Chassidishe maises, there are two gersois. One version says they went back to Bobroisk and spent Shabbos there. Another version says that they did indeed make it just in time for Shabbos to Lubavitch. But the point of the story, Tayyir Shluchim, is we have to remember, what is the goal? Is the goal the journey, or is the goal what we want to get out of it? Obviously, we come to the Rebbe to be in the Rebbe's Dal Damas, because just being in the Rebbe's Dal Damas, that in of itself is a great schus, privilege, and opportunity. But we come to the Rebbe to recharge. We come to the Kinnis HaShluchim to recharge, not just to eat ice cream from Sweet Expressions, and have kosher pizza, and go bowling with our friends. We come to spend time with other shluchim and in the presence of the Rebbe and 770 in the oil, in order to give us the opportunity to do our shlichus better. But does that mean to say, until I go to 770, until I go to the Rebbe, until I'm by the oil, until I'm by the kinus, I get to slack off on my shlichus chas v'shalom and not do everything 100% because I have to go to get recharged? No. If I have the kayach and the excitement and the enthusiasm and the inspiration to do what I'm supposed to do now the best way possible, to daven like a chassid, to learn like a chassid the way the Hillel shows us, then obviously we should do that now. And when we come to the Rebbe, to have even a greater dose of chayis and chizuk and koyach to continue doing our shlichus to the next level and to complete the shlichus by bringing Mashiach now.